October 7, 2023, militants from the armed group launched a surprise coordinated attack on Israel by land, sea, and air on Saturday morning with hundreds killed. The attack is the largest and deadliest in years and prompted an Israeli declaration of war. And in retaliation, Israel has responded with waves of air strikes into Gaza, flattening multiple buildings. In Gaza, health officials have reported that more than 230 people have died and more than 1,500 have been injured. "1993 was the year when Israel and Palestine were very close to drafting a peaceful solution, but what happened after it, that the situation worsened to the extent that, today there is a war between them. If we want to understand today's crisis properly, we need to know the history first. This is why, in today's video, let's get to know the detailed history between the two countries. How did the country Israel came into being, and how did the conflict between Israel and Palestine begin?
Tensions between Israelis and Palestinians fueled by a new surge in violence.
In years has broken out between Israelis and Palestinians. We have another session of violence here.
Israeli settlers throwing rocks and setting houses in Palestinian neighborhoods.
The UN is expressing alarm attacks in occupied Palestinian territory.
أنت معركتين بالقدس كان يعني عدد الشباب تقريبا 7 شباب.
Before starting this video, I would like to recommend you for spending your time watching such informational and educational videos, because there are thousands of ways to waste time on social media, but by watching such videos, you get better understanding of the world and you gain some knowledge. If you want to watch more knowledgeable videos like this one, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for more videos notifications. Thanks. This is the country known as Israel. Whatever area you are seeing highlighted in yellow is Israel, and the gray color area is West Bank and Gaza Strip, is the country known as Palestine. Palestine is in fact inside the Israel, and the place which is denoted by a star is Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the primary cause of the conflict between Christians, Jews and Muslims. All these things got started way back in 1047 BC, at that time this was known as Kingdom of Israel. Jews lived here and was ruled by King Solomon. Capital of Kingdom of Israel was Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem, the King Solomon constructed first temple of Jews, which was named as Temple Mount, and Jews used to worship regularly in that temple. After that, in year 586 BC, Babylonian came and they demolished this first temple. Then came Persians, who got that temple reconstructed, but after reconstruction the first temple was named as Second Temple. Then came Roman Empire, who demolished the second temple and only a wall was left by that time. Jesus Christ was born into a Jewish family. As Jesus Christ grew under the Roman Empire, he, instead of core teaching of Jews in Jerusalem, started his own teaching, and his ideology started getting recognized very quickly, but the Jews never liked that, and this issue got so much escalated. According to the Christians, Jews in Jerusalem publicly crucified Jesus, resulting into his death. Christians believe that only Jews were responsible for the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Now, due to all this, there were hype of negative sentiments against Jews. Until today Jews are blamed for this. By this particular point of time, everything was running fine in Roman Empire, but in the year 306, King Valerius passes away and his son Constantine the Great becomes Roman king. Constantine started liking Christianity a lot, and he becomes the first king to adopt Christianity. By his conversion to Christianity, Christianity started spreading in entire Rome, but as Jesus was killed by Jews, hatred toward Jews also spreads widely, and in his kingdom, Jews were very badly tortured and killed, which results in Jews' migration to all over the world to save their lives, especially to Europe. And the place where Jesus was crucified, Constantine the Great, built the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and this constructed Church of the Holy Sepulchre was approximate 2 kilometers away from the area of Temple Mount. Jews call it Temple Mount, but the Muslims refer to it as Bait al-Maqdis. After this, in year 638 AD, after defeating the Roman empires, comes the Arab army of Umar. When this Jews' area fell in the hands of Arab armies, the area in Jerusalem where Jews had their second temple Dome of the Rock was constructed. At the same place, Al-Aqsa Mosque was constructed. This happened because Muslims' prophet reached Jerusalem, and he offered prayers there, and the place where he prayed, Al-Aqsa Mosque was constructed, and from the same place he stepped on a holy stone and entered the heaven. Dome of the Rock is constructed on the same place. This on screen is the Dome of the Rock, and this is Al-Aqsa Mosque, and this is the Western Wall. This entire area as shown, is called Temple Mount by Jews, and Muslims refer to it as Bait al-Maqdis. Al-Aqsa Mosque doesn't allow entry to non-Muslims, and Jews are allowed to worship on the Western Wall. 2 kilometers from this area is Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and this area of around 37 acres is the area, which is very important for Christians, Muslims and Jews. Now you can understand the importance of Jerusalem, which lead to world's 3 large religions. For Muslims, after Mecca and Medina, this area became third holiest site in Islam. Jews, even after being settled anywhere in the world, always offered their prayers with their face turned toward Jerusalem. Till today, any Jew would pray facing this way only, and this is the reason there are so many issues regarding this area, and why all 3 communities want to it. Now in year 1891, and the kingdom area of Jews was taken by Arabs, but Jews who were living all across the world, especially in Europe, they always wanted to go back to their motherland. In same year 1891, a Jews writer with the name Leon Pinsker wrote a book Auto-Emancipation, where he wrote, "In Europe, Jews are treated badly, even after any law created for Jews there, but Europeans were not considering them equal citizens. Jews needed to write their own fate and establish an independent state for them. Taking all this into account, Jews started a movement, which was known as Zionism. Purpose of Zionism movement was to get Jews their original land back. All this kept going, and around year 1914, when First World War was about to start, Germany and Britain were against each other, and Ottoman Empire, who were ruling over the kingdom of Jews, was supporting Germany. The British play a clever hand here. They tell the Arab revolutionaries that in return for their support in defeating the Ottoman Empire, they will give them the Palestine area, and the Arab revolutionaries were fighting to create a unified Arab country. The Arab revolutionaries wanted one Arab country from Syria to Yemen. The Britishers promised the same thing to the Jews, that they will help them to create their own Jewish country near Palestine. Why do they do this? So that they could appease the American Jews, and could gain influence on American politics. But in reality, the British made a secret deal with the French. As soon as the Ottoman Empire fell after World War I, Britain and France divided the Middle East area between themselves. The British took over the control of the Palestine region. 1918 to 1948, the entire Palestine area was under the control of the British government. At this time in Germany, Hitler gets political power, and the Jews are massacred in millions in a genocide. The Jews flee from Hitler-controlled Europe to different countries to save themselves. Some got refuge in America, but many of those Jews went to Palestine. Britain allowed them to enter Palestine initially, but later, they started stopping them from coming to Palestine. Because of this, an Israeli nationalist movement started in Palestine. At the same time, around the 1940s, Palestine nationalist movement had also begun, and the Palestinians were also demanding their own country. In 1948, the British government realizes that enough's enough, and that they cannot remain there longer. They left the Jewish to form a Jewish country, and the Palestinians to form their own country. They accepted that they could not come up with a partition plan, and ceded the responsibility to the United Nations. The British then left Palestine. In 1947, the United Nations Partition Plan is released. In the plan, the United Nations kept 55% of the area for the Jewish country, and 45% of the area for the Arab Palestinian country. Jerusalem is a very historically important area for 3 religions, for the Jews, Christians and Muslims, so the United Nations decided that Jerusalem would be under international control. the Jews accepted this plan and named their new country Israel. Here, the Israel country was born in 1948. But the other neighboring Arab countries weren't pleased with this plan at all, so they start a war against Israel, saying that they will not allow the Jews to take any part of the land. This war is named the First Arab-Israeli War of 1948, and this is a very historic war in and of itself. More than 5 countries were fighting against a tiny new country. The Jews living in Israel knew that 5 years ago, they had seen how the rest of the world treated them, how Hitler had treated them, and then all the Arab countries were starting a war against them. If they didn't fight to survive, they wouldn't be able to survive ever. So to save themselves, they fought with all they had, and very surprisingly, Israel won the war, defeating all these countries. After the war ends in 1949, the areas that were supposed to be Palestine's according to the UN partition plan, Israel occupied several of these areas. The Gaza Strip area went to Egypt, and the West Bank area went to Jordan. This meant that the Palestinians did not have a country any longer. More than 700,000 Palestinians had to leave their homes and become refugees in Arab countries. This is named the 1948 Palestinian Exodus. After this, in 1967, the Second Arab-Israeli War takes place. This war lasts for 6 days, and Israel wins this easily too. Not only does Israel occupy the Gaza Strip and the West Bank area, but also this large Egyptian peninsula gets occupied by Israel after this war. Palestinians wanted their own country. For this reason, in 1964, Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, was founded. Initially, their aim was to use weapons to get their own country. They also wanted that Israel should cease to exist. Because of this, the USA and Israel declared it to be a terrorist organization. But in 1974, PLO gets officially recognized by the United Nations General Assembly to be the representative of the Palestinian people. It had been more than 10 years since Israel had occupied the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. During this period, many Israelis started establishing their colonies in the West Bank. They started building settlements and living there permanently. Israeli government supported them directly or indirectly, and the prices of the homes were low there. Some people go there for cheap housing while others for their religious nationalism. Some fanatic Israelis claim that the entire West Bank area is theirs, and so they would reside there, and so Israeli settlements started cropping up in the West Bank area. The international community deems these settlements to be illegal, because these settlements go against the United Nations partition plan, and the Palestinians see them as colonization. Basically, their country is being colonized by the Israelis. In 1992, Israel gets an amazing prime minister. His name was Yitzhak Rabin. He said that PLO is not a terrorist organization, they just want their country and the Israelis should let them have it. Israel officially recognized PLO, and in return, PLO officially recognized Israel as a country, and here the 1993 Oslo Accords take place. For the first time, both of them come together and talk about how the country can be correctly and peacefully divided, about how the Palestinian country can be created. As a result, in 1994, the Palestinian government is established for the first time. It is named the Palestinian National Authority, but at this point in time, Israelis had already established permanent settlements in many West Bank areas, which were supported by the Israeli government. And the Palestinians were living in few areas in bits and pieces. It was then decided to divide the West Bank area into 3 parts, Area A, B and C. Area A would be under the Palestinian government control. In Area B both the governments will exercise control, and Area C will be the area where the Israeli government would retain control. In reality, in 1994, Palestine gets only some bits and pieces in the West Bank area and Gaza Strip to form their country, but the good news is that at that point in time, Israel and Palestine were very close to come up with a peaceful solution. For this reason, in 1994, the president of the Palestinian Authority, Yasser Arafat, and the Prime Minister of Israel Yitzhak Rabin were awarded Nobel Peace Prize. But unfortunately, after this, the whole situation goes downhill, when the extreme right-wing Jewish people assassinate their Prime Minister. A Jewish extremist shot the Israeli Prime Minister thrice from a pistol at point-blank range in 1995. these fanatic Jewish people questioned the compromise with Palestine, about why they were given any land at all. They wanted entire Palestine to be Israelis, and because of these fanatics, the situation kept on worsening. Around 5 to 6 years before this incident, some Islamic fanatics in Palestine formed the Hamas group. Hamas group claimed that the PLO is being too secular and compromising a lot with Israel, but in reality, they wanted to erase Israel from the maps, so the fanatics created a new organization to fight for the eradication of Israel, and therefore the Hamas group was formed. Obviously, when the peace treaty was signed in 1994 between Palestine and Israel, the Jewish fanatics started hating their prime minister, and on the other hand, the Hamas group started hating the PLO. People on both sides, the Israelis and Palestinians, started hating each other. Some hatred was already there, and after 1995 it kept on increasing. Around 2002, violent protests were seen on both sides. More than 100 Israelis and Palestinians died on the other side of the border. There were clashes on the ground, and the people had become so skeptical of each other that Israel started building walls around its settlements. Security guards were deployed around the permanent houses built by the Israelis in the West Bank, and checkpoints were placed, and it continued to become increasingly difficult for Palestinians to live there. In 2006, the Hamas militant group took part in the Palestinian election and won. It defeated the PLO party, Fatah, but by a very small margin. It won 74 out of 132 seats, but after that, in 2007, a civil war took place between these two parties in Palestine. Internally, the supporters of one party started fighting the supporters of the other. This war is known as the Battle of Gaza. In 2007, Palestine was divided into two parts. In the Gaza Strip, Hamas established its control, and the West Bank area is controlled by Fatah and PLO, who are non-violent and rule the West Bank as a government should. But today, when Gaza Strip is under the rule of Hamas, they have basically occupied this area. The war and the rockets that we get to see are sent from the Gaza Strip area to Israel, whereas in the West Bank, where the PLO is in control, this sort of violence is not seen there. So this is the situation today. There is no doubt that Israel has continued to colonize the West Bank area for several decades, causing the clashes to intensify. The recent clash, about which I talked in the beginning of this video, was because Israel is occupying the areas in the West Bank, and the fanatics in Israel demand that the entire West Bank area be theirs, that the entire Jerusalem be theirs. And the fanatics in Palestine want to eradicate Israel completely. The most important question is, what can be the solution to this? Look at the map of Palestine. In the West Bank, the country is divided into so many parts, that today, if this country were to be given an independent government, how will it exist in so many bits and pieces? Some people believe that a two-state solution can still be possible, that the area should be divided on the basis of 1967, on the basis of Israel and Palestine. Some people say that the division needs to be on the basis of the 1948 partition plan, but if this is done, then the most prominent question will be, what will happen to the colonies of permanent settlement that Israel had built in Palestine? There are proper societies with homes, schools, hospitals, and wide roads. What will happen to these areas if they are reclaimed by Palestine? There are hundreds of thousands of people living in the settlements in the West Bank. Here I would like to ask, what do you think? What could be the solution to this crisis? How should two countries be divided? Write in the comments below. Hope you like the video. If you like the video, please share it, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for more videos. Thanks.